Welcome to Speak the Truth. This is our 10th episode.
Wow.
Episode number 10. My, how time flies by when you're having fun and dealing with the issues.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. As you all know, on Sunday from 3 to 4 is truth telling time, and the man who speaks nothing but the truth, Mr. Harold Bell. I'm going to turn it over to you. Everybody, if you just kind of mute yourselves when we need it, we'll have you come on in. Mr. B, over to you.
Okay, welcome everyone to Speak the Truth. Like Gary said, this is our 10th episode, and I must say the response has been fantastic. We got 3 topics we want to deal with today, and that's, of course, voting, everybody to get out to vote, and you know, there's a lot of controversy going on about voting in the post office. Also, this coronavirus, man, it's 8 million people have been infected, and look, it doesn't look good. It really doesn't. Also, we want to take a look at Driving While Black. Those of you who have not seen Driving While Black on PBS, please sit down with your family and check this out. I mean, you know, I know it's been rough for a long time for Black folks driving while Black, but to see it so graphic, man, how they treat Black people. This is 2020, and it looked like this is the 1800s, man, and we're still being treated the exact same way. So we got to be careful. We got to let our grandchildren know what's going on. We got to let our children know what's going on. We got to let our family know, period, what's going on out in these streets. Now, today, we got a very special guest. Let me give you a little history first. You know, I always like to give people a little history on Speak the Truth. I want people when they leave here to say, well, I didn't know that. Well, I'm gonna give you something a lot of you probably didn't know. Dr. Charles H. Thomas Jr. is a civil rights icon. He's a former president of the local chapter of the NAACP in Orangeburg, South Carolina. He and his wife, Elise, marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in the 50s. The Thomas family is the first family of civil rights in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Now, during the early 50s, my wife, Hattie, and her siblings' second home was the Orangeburg jail. The Thomas family moved to Washington, D.C. in 1969, which was already their second home. Dr. Thomas was a graduate of Dunbar High School here in Washington, D.C. They moved to Lucy Lane in Suitland, Maryland, which became a way station for the Thomas Circle family. And those of you who know what a way station is, it was like, you know, the slaves would escape from the South and they would be told where they could go and be safe. Well, the Thomas Circle had a similar type of way station. It was the Thomas House on Lucy Lane, which was similar, I guess the best way to describe it, like being the Green Book, okay? When you left the South headed north, it was a good possibility that your first stop would be Lucy Lane, if you remember the family. Now, our next guest is the only one I know who left from the north headed south. And his first stop was the way station on Lucy Lane. And, you know, we're so proud of what he's been able to do since then. I want to take time out to introduce him. You know, like I said, he comes out of Manhattan College, where he got his BA, went on to get his jurisprudence from Rutgers University, came on here to Washington, D.C., where he took a job with the Department of Transportation as director of Office of Civil Rights. Then he moved on to the United States General Accounting Office, where he became the managing director and the Office of Opportunity and Inclusiveness. Then he left there and went to the United States House of Representatives as the staff director, Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. His last stop was Deputy Postmaster General and Chief of Government Relations until he retired. Now, this is a brother. He knew when to hold them and he knew when to fold them. He left on Friday the 13th. I'm trying to, man, how did you pick that day That's supposed to be a bad luck day. He left on Friday the 13th. He said, I'm out of here. He may have a good luck day. I would like to welcome our special guest, none other than Mr. Ronald Stroman. How you doing, Ronald?
Harold Bell, how are you, my brother? Well, look, man, before we go any further, let me begin by saying how honored I am to be on your show. You know, the community owes you so much, and I mean that sincerely. You know, when we talk about speaking truth to power, there is nobody. You are the example of speaking truth to power. You are my model of speaking truth to power. And when people were afraid and people were running around and they didn't want to say the truth, you stood up and took the truth, no matter what it cost you. And I've got to say, man, you are a role model. It's an honor to be on your show, you and Hattie, and you know, it is just such a great honor. The second thing I will say is, yeah, brother. I mean, you know, when I was coming south to Maryland, hey, you know, Aunt Elisa's house was the first stop I made, and it was such a, you know, and I just want to say, you know, just in terms of family, how important it is when, you know, when you're down and you're working and you don't know what you're doing or where you're going, to have a circle of family and support. And I think everybody needs that, no matter where you are, what family you have, having that family, because, you know, when you're working in the lion's den, I mean, you got to come home because there's this mental stress that's on you and on us. And having that family support of friends and family just makes it possible. And so for whatever I have been able to achieve, a lot of it has to do with that support that you get, the love that you get, you know, that you get coming home and having a meal and sitting down and laughing and joking and talking about, you know, just talking about things, man, and being real, you know, and having some place where you can be real. So this is an honor, Harold, for me to be here. And look, man, I just look forward to the conversation, brother.
All right. All the credit goes to this lady on my left. Really, 52 years, man. A real warrior. Definitely a warrior from out of the Thomas family. Ron, I want to start out by saying, how safe is it to vote by mail? You know, with the upcoming election, we're talking about 180 million people will be eligible to vote. That's 3/4 of the electorate. How is this going to go down, Ron?
Well, let me start, Harold, if I can, by making a couple of just early observations. You know, I had the privilege when I was working in the Congress to work. I had the privilege when I was working in the Congress to work with some people, Reverend C.T. Vivian, John Lewis, on the extension of the Voting Rights Act. And, you know, people got died and beaten as members, you know, certainly the Thomas family knows this more than I do, how difficult it was to stand up and get the right to vote, and how people marched, had dogs attacking them, how civil rights legislation had to overcome segregationists in the Congress. And so to me, you start out with a moral obligation that we have to go vote. So what I want to say is, no matter how you vote, whether you vote by mail, whether you put your ballot in a box, whether you decide to go online, however you vote, please vote and vote early. So that, I'm going to come back to the vote early thing in a minute. So I want to start there. The second thing I wanted to pick up on is the reason that this whole vote by mail thing is, you know, where it is now is because of COVID-19. And to the point that you made, Harold, COVID-19 is no joke. It is devastating the African-American community. I mean, African-Americans are being disproportionately affected and dying as a result of COVID-19. So it is important that as we exercise this right to vote, that we are careful, that we are conscious, that we are taking all precautions, because, you know, as important as it is, our health is important. And then there's no reason why, unfortunately, we should have to choose between voting, which is our constitutional right, and living and dying, you know, because of COVID-19. And so I'm saying, so that kind of is the setup to get to the mail question. So with regard to the mail question, let me say this. Having worked at the Postal Service for 9 years, having led the Vote by Mail initiative, I can tell you this. People have been voting by mail since the Civil War. And the Postal Service has been delivering mail and ballots since that time and continue to do it. Somewhere between 25 and 30% of the population of the employees of the Postal Service are African American. And I'm saying those brothers and sisters are out there every single day doing a great job delivering the mail. They're doing everything they can to make sure, because they believe in this. And I'm telling you, I've met with them, I've talked to them. You can see them now. People are trying to do the best that they can. That doesn't say mistakes aren't made, because we've all had mail that's gone to the wrong place. But when you look at how much mail we get on a regular basis, the protections that are in place, the new technology to track and trace, the ballots, all of this, I think, makes the mail, in my view, a very, very safe medium to cast your ballot. But again, I'm gonna come back to a couple of things. Unfortunately, what has happened is that the president has trashed the whole idea of vote by mail, right? He's saying it's illegitimate, can't do it, shouldn't do it, Postal Service can't deliver. And in my view, Harold, in part to try to get people not to vote, right? Not to get people not to vote. So I don't think we ought to fall for that. The other thing that has happened, however, is that you now have a new Postmaster General. And the new Postmaster General, and from North Carolina, down where you are, has had put in place certain procedures which ended up slowing the mail and backed the mail up. And he should never have done it. It was a mistake to do it. And certainly it was a mistake to do this right before an election. But a couple of things have happened since that time. There have been 7 federal district court cases which have enjoined the Postal Service from delaying the mail at this point. They have stopped those procedures and implemented an independent monitor to oversee the vote by mail effort. So now you've got not just the Postal Service, but you've got federal courts from the West Coast to the East Coast, enjoining those things, having an independent monitor. And I think right now, things are moving pretty well. Things are in place, checks are in place, monitors are in place. They have monitors in all of the plants now who are looking at vote by mail. But here's what I do say. No matter all of that is in place, you have to vote early in order to ensure that ballot gets counted. So here's what I'm saying to people who are on this call. If you intend to vote by mail, and I voted by mail, I voted weeks ago in DC by mail. And that's another indication that I think is safe. You need to get that ballot in the mail by next Saturday. You got about a week, a little bit more than a week, next Saturday, next Sunday, to get your ballot in to ensure it counts. After that, then you're starting to run into stuff that can happen, right? Delays that can happen, mistakes that get made, and there's not enough time to correct it. So what we've seen, Harold, is during the course of the primary season, in the early part of the voting, you've seen a lot of some mistakes that have been made in different states. Ballots sent to the wrong place, going to the wrong address, but there's been enough time to correct those mistakes and get them where they need to go. Once you get past Saturday, then you're running up against, election day. And so you don't have enough time if there are mistakes. So my advice to everybody is, if you're gonna vote by mail, put that thing in the mail by next Saturday, Sunday at the latest, and it'll be picked up on Monday. So get that thing in the mail. If you happen, if for whatever reason you can't get it in the mail, you can't fill it out by next week, you forgot, can't find, you got to get a new ballot, then my suggestion is, for those locations, if you have a drop box, then you take that ballot, you wait till the line gets low so you don't have to wait online, and you take that ballot and you stick it in a drop box, right? That way you're not exposing yourself to long lines of people and the coronavirus. So my second suggestion is to put that thing, find a drop box, an official drop box, because you know some people have these phony drop boxes, so you gotta be careful. Put it in a drop box. And then the third option is if that doesn't work and you have to go and vote at the polls, and people getting there early, take precautions. You know, you got to have a mask, you got to socially distant, you got to, if you have hand sanitizers, bring that hand sanitizer with you. Make sure, you know, you're not touching your face, put that hand sanitizer on, and just try to be as safe as you can standing in line. But to circle back, man, to your big early question, mail, I believe, is certainly a safe medium in view of everything that's going on. You got to get that ballot in there early. And if you do, I feel confident that that ballot's going to be counted.
All right, beautiful. Gary Johnson, follow up with that.
Okay, yeah, let me unmute. This has been, actually, your comments have been quite reassuring to me. I had a low bar. I had a low bar, especially everything I've been reading about this new Postmaster General.
Right.
So I'm reassured. All of our shows have been good. This might be the most important show, as I'm sitting here thinking that we definitely have to get this one out and make sure that people understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, people have legitimate reasons to be concerned in view of everything they've seen, Gary. There's absolutely no question about that. And, you know, I think people have also seen these voter suppression tactics that are happening all across the country, where they're limiting the ability to drop mail in drop boxes, right? They're cutting back on that. They're reducing places where you can vote. You know, all of these things are not happening by mistake. They're happening by design. So I get people's concern. And then you have a new Postmaster General who's a Trump supporter, who's a Trump fundraiser, and people are saying, well, it's sabotage. People are trying to sabotage the mail. So I get that. But I am saying having somebody who watches this very, very carefully, who knows the people in the Postal Service, who have seen the court orders, have seen the judges who are saying, no, this is how it's going to go down, and stop these things from going forward. I feel very confident that your ballot, if you get it in the mail on time, is going to be counted, and is a safe medium. And particularly, as I said, you know, with this COVID-19, we really got to be careful, man. We really have to be careful. So I hear you, Gary.
And
I was going to say, after I finished doing my paper ballot, I personally took it up to the main office.
Good.
And made sure that they had it from my hand to theirs.
That's even better. That's one less step that, you know, you got to take. The carriers don't have to pick it up anywhere. It's right there at the right at the office, and you know, you don't have to worry. And so I think that certainly is a good solution to the problem.
Now, they had thousands of return paper ballots. They were waiting on the state to decide what they could do. Could they send them back or whatever? And they did say that they could send them back, but the time limit on it. And, you know, they had that new thing where you had to have a witness. Did you
North Carolina, right?
Yeah, we had to have a witness to sign, and a lot of people didn't have their witnesses to sign. I made sure my next door neighbor was my witness. Her address, her phone number had to be on that return.
wow.
Well, again, Ann, this goes to Gary's point. I mean, I am so happy that you got your witness. But you know, so many people in a pandemic, they don't have a witness. You know, they don't have anybody who they can come over and watch their signature. And so to me, it's just outrageous that you have some of these states that are requiring a signature verification in the middle of a pandemic.
Mhm.
So to me, the only thing that they're trying to do is to suppress the vote,
Yeah.
suppress people from going forward with their vote. Because if there was ever a time not to have a verification, and look, you can do other things. You can do signature matches. So a lot of states, what they do is they'll look at the signature that you have on file, and they'll look at the signature as it comes in, and you match the signature that comes in with what is on file. And if there are questions about it, you call the voter and you say, we got a question here, can you come down and you verify? So this whole idea of, having to get somebody else to verify your signature, to me, it is just outrageous. But look, that's North Carolina. Y'all are down. You're gonna have to do. You know what? If y'all elect, some new people, you can overturn that. That's why you got to vote. That's why you got to vote. If you elect the right people down there in North Carolina legislature, you can get rid of that signature verification. But people got to come out to vote.
Where I live is certainly Democratic, but it's out there in the boomies that will vote Republican, and that's it.
I hear you.
Charlize.
Hello, am I? Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
muted. Hi, Harold and family and Ronald.
Hey, Charlize.
It's my pleasure to see everybody, say hello, but also I heard you, Ronald, back in August, I think on CNN or MSNBC. That was terrific. Steve and I voted on Tuesday.
Okay.
And we in Georgia, Ronald.
I know.
And lines everywhere. Everybody's voting. He had no problem. I ended up with a slight problem that was solved immediately. But that was, I had applied for the absentee ballot.
Right.
Had not received it. Steve received his and had it in his hand because they say, bring it with you.
Right.
I had applied for it and had not received it. And the lady held me up for, a period of 5 minutes, checking and looking and asking for my driver's license and the ID and everything. And then she had to call a manager because she said it had been sent to me. It registered that it had been sent to me on the 23rd of September. So here it was, October, whatever the Tuesday was, the 13th, I think. I had not received it. So I did get it after I got back home the next day. But anyway, what allowed me to vote was a courteous manager. And she looked at my credentials, my driver's license, but I had to sign that I had, not getting 2 votes. So that to me is important to stress that if you receive that ballot, take it with you. If you didn't receive it, make sure you have, and she matched my signature and everything. So that's important. Otherwise, they turn you around.
Yeah, Charlize, that is such good advice. Because, if you had not been persistent, I'm sure she would have been just happy if you turned around and didn't vote, because it said, no, we sent it to you, you go on home. But see, I think given your family history and that spirit of, no, I'm going to vote, you weren't willing to accept that. And you stood there and you insisted that you wanted to vote and that the vote was important, and they brought the manager in and you worked it through. But, they would have been happy if you had just turned around and gone on home.
Sure.
So I applaud you for, that spirit. And that's what we need. We need people like that willing to say, hey, no, I'm going to vote. Now, we're going to work this out some way or another, but I'm not going home. I'm going to vote right here, right now, no matter what it takes.
May I say one other comment?
Go ahead.
Harold?
It's Harold's show.
Go
Now I'm
ahead.
saying,
Go
sure.
ahead.
I don't know.
Okay. Rose, my sister-in-law, our sister-in-law, Charles Hattie, but she carried her mother, and her mother is 90 years old. And Rose was hoping that she could be able to vote, and she was allowed to vote. But I was told that here in Georgia, a lot of people say, no, you can be here with her, but you have to go get in the line. But for those of us over in Georgia, they let us vote over 65, at least at our poll.
Right.
But Rose said it was over 75. But just tell people also to insist if they carry an older person, and they might be just a little younger or something, if they're the caretaker, they shouldn't make them go and make the other people sit in the hot car and wait or go back home. They ought to be able to vote with them.
That's right. That's right. Speak the truth. That's right.
You got a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I was just saying, if those of you who, tuned in, like Charles and Kenny and Eartha, all of you, if you have something to say, you
can say it.
You can let him know.
That's all right. Hey, Ron, I want the next question. What is the naked ballot? What's the naked ballot? I heard that the other day.
Say what?
The naked ballot. It says a naked ballot.
So that just, Harold, that just means it's nothing filled out. That's all. I mean, that's just a plain ballot. I mean, that's just a plain, nothing's filled out. A naked ballot is just, you just have to check. You don't have to write anything. You have to check this box or that box. That's all. And there's nothing which is in the ballot material. Sometimes what they do is they send ballot material with the ballot. And so it can get a little confusing. The ballot is just the ballot. That's all. It's just, they're just sending you a copy of the ballot. So that's all it is.
Let me say, there are some instances where they send 2 envelopes.
Yes.
One with your voting information has to be put into another envelope, or either they'll call that naked.
Yeah.
Yes. And so what that is, Hattie, is that in some states, not all states, in some states, you have to take the ballot and you have to drop it in a secret envelope. And then what you do is you sign your name on the outside of the envelope so they can then match your name with what they have on file. So that's not everybody, not every state has that. And they, like in DC, they have that. So you have to take it. It's a way in which they can determine, instead of having 2 signatures, like in North Carolina, where you have to go get a signature verification. What they'll do is just put it in a secret envelope. You sign the outside. So when the envelope comes in to the elections board, they're going to match that envelope with the signature they have on file. And then if they don't match, then you got a problem. And then they may give you a call and let you know. So that's the envelope that's inside. The naked envelope is just a ballot. That's all. And you just put the ballot in. But the secrecy envelope is what many states use to try to determine the appropriateness of the signature.
Now, Ronald, we have in Maryland, we don't have 2 envelopes.
Right.
Yes, we have, but don't you think that it would, I know that it would be better to have universal rules, but can that happen?
Yeah, that is, Hattie, that is such a wonderful question. I mean, it is a great question. It doesn't make it, to me, I agree with you. What sense does it make to have a different method of voting in North Carolina, in Georgia, in South Carolina, and then, Maryland? Everybody does it differently. And unfortunately, the way voting is done in the United States is that it's done state by state. So every state operates differently. In fact, every board of election can operate differently. In fact, you can have different rules in one county than you do in another county. So it doesn't make any sense. And I don't know why, you know, when they created this, the founding fathers created this system of voting, they made it so decentralized. So what the Democrats were trying to do in the House of Representatives was to unify, you know, the voting procedure so that they would all be the same. But the Republicans objected in the Senate. And so now you got this mismatch where, you know, every state gets to decide for themselves. Honestly, I just think it's another way to keep people from voting. You know, you got to know this rule, that rule, and Georgia does it differently. And you know, the history of voting in the South is a little different now than the history of voting in the North. So I'm not saying it's perfect in the North, but that voting history in the South is they're not trying to help you vote. They're trying to do everything to prevent you from voting. And this is one of the tactics that they use.
Okay. Kenny Bush and Aunt Eartha, the matriarch of the family, would you like to ask Ronald a question about voting? Kenny and Aunt Eartha.
They should tell us about their history of voting. I mean, on Earth, I can't tell on Earth or nothing. I mean,
hey, how about it, Ronald? How about it? As a matter of fact, as mom being 96 years young,
wow,
just had her filled out her absentee ballot on last Monday.
All right now.
And we actually got her in the car. I said, Mama, instead of putting this back in the mail, we actually go down there, we go hand it off in person.
There you go.
So that's what we did. Got Mom in the car and I gave her the envelope and she put it in the lady's hand and made it official.
All right.
I said, now, Mama, you officially a Jamie Harrison voter, as well as you're tired of Donald Trump as well.
Aunt Eartha, you want to say something, Aunt Eartha?
Oh, I'm just enjoying the conversation, and tonight I wish there were more people who took the initiative to be just a little bit more politically duty-wise.
That's right.
And it's nice to see the ones that are carrying on.
That's right.
Continue the good work.
Thank you. Yes.
All right.
From South Carolina.
And you can paint you.
You can pinch him.
Hey, Harold, she's speaking truth now. She's speaking truth.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Long as you all beat Lindsay.
Is Charles there?
You all beat Lindsay.
What'd you say about Lindsay, Ann?
That's as long as you all beat him.
Hey, keep us in prayer, because they're trying hard down here, just like we're trying to get
I know they are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm here.
Like you're trying to get rid of Tillis and North Carolina as well.
Yeah, you ain't lying. You are not lying, brother.
Cunningham, they got some nasty slurs out.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah, hello, Harold and Hattie. Congratulations to you all, and of course, to cousin Ronald Stroman. So proud of you, and I certainly was here when you came down from New York, and here, and you were definitely a mentor to me, coming to my football games and all that kind of stuff when I was in high school. So thank you so much.
Oh, brother, it was my honor. And you were a bad boy. Let me just say that. It was easy. You was a bad boy.
Well, thank you very much. I am so proud that you were in position to even make a difference with the Postal Service. You know, my dad was pretty influential in that system as well, as he came here during the Nixon administration, as if you can imagine that. But right now, I must admit, I'm a little skeptic about mailing. Certainly, I wish you were there, but I understand when, you know, ideals don't come together, you have to part your ways. So you put your time in. And so thank you so much for what you've done. I personally am going to go to the polls. I will probably go ahead of time. Here in Maryland, we don't get to vote until October 26th for early voting, which is kind of late if you think about it. My daughter who lives here in my home, she's going to mail hers. So I will definitely let her know about making sure hers gets in. I know as a part-time football coach now to a predominantly Black school, we like to say we want a blowout. We want to win by a landslide. And I think you all know that the president is trying to keep this thing so close as the only way that he can win this thing. And certainly if we pour it in and continue to pour in the votes, it won't even have to worry about the cheating. But we know that cheating is going to go about, but we know we serve a great God, and just praying for the best, keeping the faith. But thank you so much, and encourage everyone to vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anybody
Charles.
else have any post office questions? Anybody?
Hey, everybody.
Oh, hey,
Juanita.
Juanita.
Hey, I don't have a question, but I got some good news to report.
Okay.
So I'm a part of a small women's group, and it's 4 of us that actually registered 196 people. And in addition to registering the 196 people, we were able to pick up 120 ballots. From there, we went door to door to people, so we kept and when the ballots started coming in, we were going around and we actually picked up 120. We have 76 outstanding that we haven't been able to get yet. It was real low key, but it actually made us feel like we was doing something instead of nothing. So I'm real excited about that. I mean, it's just like a little thing, but I just wanted to report that we're doing something up in the hood, all right?
Okay. All right. Okay.
I have a question. I just needed to ask.
Oh, Maggie, okay.
Yeah, it's Maggie. I just heard that if with the ballots, if you're really going to send it through the mail, that if you put a stamp or 2 on it, that it has to be treated as first-class mail. Is there any truth to that rumor?
So if you put a stamp on it, it is first class mail. Anybody puts a stamp, any of the mail going back from a voter to an election board, that's all first class. The only other class would be what they call marketing mail, and that's when sometimes the election board uses that to send the mail to you. But all of your mail your ballots are first class mail, so you don't have to worry about that. And so first class mail has a service standard. I won't get into details, but it's from 2 to 5 days. So your mail, no matter where it is in the country, if you mail it, it's supposed to get from origin to destination in somewhere between 2 and 5 days. So that's why I say people just make sure you get it in the mail by Saturday, and you have plenty of time. It won't be a problem.
Now here they tell you must have a stamp on it.
Yeah. Now I'm not saying I'm not saying you don't have a stamp.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that it'll be first class mail.
Okay, gotcha.
Send it back to the Board of Election. That gets the quickest service standard. Some places, they pay for the ballot to go back for the envelope. Other places they don't. It just depends on where you happen to be.
Okay. There was an important documentary on PBS a couple of nights ago called Driving While Black. Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't mention the drop-in boxes, and that's where we, when we voted, we went and hand delivered them by dropping them in the drop box. Now, how safe do you think that is?
Oh, I think, Hattie, that's very safe. And I would suggest that people who don't use the mail and don't want to wait online, just drop it in a box. I mean, most of those boxes are monitored in some way, at least in some jurisdictions. They have, they are very secure. I have never heard of any ballot either being lost or anything happening with the drop boxes. So I think drop boxes are very safe. And I would certainly encourage, like I said, I would discourage waiting online if you don't have to. I get Charles, but I would discourage waiting online, and you could drop it in a Dropbox. I think it's very, very secure. And let me
Mama
just,
Hattie and Mr. Ronald, I when I was dropping off the ballots, and we went several times, what I observed was the police were there.
yeah.
Park police was there. In fact, I think every time that I went, the park police was there. But I went in the daytime. I didn't go at night, so I don't know what's going on at night.
Right. No,
I was curious about that.
In most places, some places have TV monitors. Some places have real monitor. I mean, people standing there, but they are very, very secure. And Juanita, let me thank you for all you work that you just talked about. You said it wasn't a big deal. It's a huge deal. And if everybody did what you did, I mean, we would be able to control this country. So you are doing a great job. So thank you for everything you've done.
All right. Anyway, I was getting ready to say is that a couple of nights ago on PBS, there was a show called Driving While Black. And I think everybody that's Black and has kids, has grandkids, and have Black men they're associated with should see this PBS. It was very graphic. It really upset me. Now, even though I know that it's going on, but man, that thing took you back to the 1800s, what these folks are doing to us today. So I'm saying, if you get a chance to see this, Gary, if you're still there, will you run the trailer for Driving While Black?
Yes, sir. Hang on 1 second. We got it. Let's see here. Here we go.
Hi, Anna.
Ability is essential to freedom.
It's difficult to overstate the importance of the road and the car in American life.
What it means to be American is to take to the road, to control your own destiny, discovery, freedom.
Could I see some ID, please?
The notion of driving while Black reminds us that that's not available to all Americans.
Living while Black, while Black, eating while Black, moving while Black. That goes all the way back to day one.
The power to choose, to be able to move freely in space. We live in a country where it's never been everybody's right.
If you're an African American or in a car, it provides a powerful alternative.
But it's personal. The automobile allows us to understand the way that African Americans moved forward in this country and the way that African Americans have been pushed back.
For African Americans, trips across country are not adventures.
What do you do?
Where the Green Book was indispensable to give you some way of finding a place where you could get some rest, get something to eat without being violated.
Once they were inside this building, nobody was going to worry them.
People are not going to let themselves be paved over. They will insist that their voices are heard.
There are still so many dangers. African Americans are feeling a similar fear as their grandparents felt.
We have to engage history with a kind of brutal honesty.
Until we get to a place in which we actually are trying to live up to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for every human being who is in our society, then we're not there yet.
Okay. Did anybody see that the other night besides Hattie and I? And what do you think about Driving While Black in 2020? Kenny, let's start out with you. You're out there in North Carolina. You got a South Carolina. Well, you okay? Kenny, wherever you live, what about Driving While Black?
Well, that would be Orangeburg, Greensboro.
Yeah.
But for certainly that's definitely something of emphasis that as a Black man you can't help but to be concerned about, because knowing how real it is, and we see it every day, if not on television, we can personally know of someone that has experienced driving while black, but it's a definite concern, more so to, as a father, speaking to your son, the younger ones, the teenagers, how important it is to understand just that. Don't take it for granted.
Ronald, you got two young men. I know that you're very concerned about driving while black, and you yourself, of course, has driven while black. Tell us how you think about that.
Yeah, well, let me say this, Harold. I feel very strongly on this topic, you know, and I will say, you know, everybody has to make decisions for themselves. I would say that for Vanessa and I, if there's a mistake that we made, that we think we made with them, it is giving them a car when they were in high school. I will tell you that they both were stopped repeatedly by the police for no reason other than driving. And my oldest son, at one point, police drew guns on he and some of his, you know, his friends. Vanessa, my wife, once was in the car with Jared, and the police didn't know who she was, and he just stopped her, pulled him over. Well, then once he got there and he saw her, then he just said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to pull him over. This is right here, right over here in Maryland," and said it was a mistake. And you know it wasn't a mistake. You know that they have been targeted and they're going to be targeted. So I think you have to have very serious conversations with both your sons and your daughters, you know, if they're black, about being stopped by the police for no reason, because my judgment is at some point it's likely to happen. And we've seen these videos where people have been doing nothing and end up getting shot. So you have to teach them how to de-escalate the environment, how to be very careful about moving their hands, to make sure that if they get stopped, their hands are visible. They don't make any quick movements and they announce what they're doing. And if the police get out of control, you just have to try to de-escalate and stay calm. It's a serious problem, Harold. And I think everybody just needs to have, to me, a certain training that gets done. I mean, it's almost like, you know, this is likely to happen. And you just can't just assume that it's not. It's going to happen. I see, you know, Kenny, and I see Christopher, and, you know, I just, you know, see these young men, and I worry for them. I mean, I just worry for them. And I think, you know, we have to have this conversation. There's no more important conversation than this, Harold. So that's my overall take.
Harold, this is Eddie Sargent. Can I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is an issue that's close and near and dear to all of our hearts. And my question is this: first of all, during times of war, let's say occupation by American troops in places like Iraq, this is very typical for soldiers to pull over people in cars who they suspect might be supporters of the resistance, etc. They also are very much common in terms of, and even required, to stop certain people and just pull them out off the street at random and check them out, you know, frisk them, etc. So if those kinds of things are happening in an official state of war, and those kinds of things are happening right here in the United States, then the question becomes, are we really experiencing a state of war in our communities? That's a question that I'd like to put out on the floor. My next question, especially towards gentlemen like Kenneth Bush and Christopher, for the younger people, I pose this proposition, that your generation now is responsible for finding a way to hold we're very uncomfortable with calling those who attack us in the name of the law our enemies. But an enemy is as an enemy does. And if we can use that as a political construct, that we are actually being oppressed and attacked under terms of war by enemies. I'm not saying all police officers are enemies. I love a lot of cops. I mean, I have relatives who are cops. I have dated cops. I love good police officers, but that's not the point. The point is that those who act like and carry out evil deeds against us, then we must label them somehow. And as far as I'm concerned, we must hold them accountable. With all respect to gentlemen like Mr. Ronald Stroman and a lot of older gentlemen, we've been raised to be very respectful of the government, no matter what they do. And we get into a position of, well, how can we help our children avoid this? How can we help them raise their hands high enough and lower their heads low enough to avoid all this trouble? And aren't we afraid of the police? You have people like LeBron James and our greatest and most strongest images of manhood. We're afraid of the police. I reject that notion, and I'd like to see what y'all think about that.
CJ, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on a few things there. Especially, you know, I'm a young Black person that's been pulled over a lot for no reason, just for driving. It's frustrating from people in my generation to always hear that it's up to us to fix the problems that we didn't create. It's always up to us, even though we don't have a voice in the politics almost at all. You know, we don't really are respected by either party. Democrats or Republicans they don't want to hear what young people have to say. But simultaneously, it's up to us to save everything, and it's up to us to vote, and it's up to us. So I think it would be more helpful if people actually listened to young people and what they actually wanted, and then, you know, it would be a little bit easier to play that savior role. And also, yeah, like a lot of it is about voter suppression, but at the same time, it is just a lot of finger pointing. It's a lot of work to do this voting thing down here. As someone who's in Florida, in the South right now, I definitely feel the driving while Black thing. Like, I might get me a MAGA hat just for camouflage down here.
Right.
In the wrong small town, just to fake it, just to get out. Because like you said, you have to play it strategically. And I want to live to fight another day. You know, I despise Donald Trump, but if I gotta pretend to kiss his ass to, you know, make it home one day, then I'm willing to make those sacrifices on a larger level. As was stated before, as young Black men, we don't have the luxury of violent outbursts against the police. We don't have the luxury of being able to tell the police exactly what we think about them when we're pulled over for nothing. So we have to have an extra amount of strategic self-control. A lot of times we need more self-control than the person with the gun and badge, you know, who's getting paid by the state. So those are just a few, you know, thoughts of mine.
I appreciate that. If I may, just one retort, I really appreciate I have such high respect for you, Christopher, because I've seen how you are able to help us really focus on the issues of your generation. I just want to suggest that it is your generation who has more, let's say, I think this is more of your world than it is ours. Because let's say you're 25 years old. You have, I like to think big, you have another 75 years to own and control what happens in your world, in your country. Think about that. As opposed to those who are close to 70, we have more like 20 or 25 more years. So it's more your world than it is our world. And in our generation,
yeah, but we don't have. We're not the ones in Congress. We're not the ones.
One more point. We found a way at your age. Somehow we found a way to make our voices heard, and that's the challenge to you. That's the challenge to young men like you, because you are able to take control. You're able to raise your voice. It's just a matter of, hey, how are we going to do it? Start with your own circle, and you'll figure it out.
Okay. No, I mean, I feel what you're saying, and I feel the point, but Citizens United, the Supreme Court decisions made money equal speech, which is why we don't have any speech and we don't have a voice in American politics, because money equals speech, which is why the corporations run both parties. Okay. The way you get your voice heard is through money in our political system.
We do have money.
With our student debt crisis, with the income inequality, our generation is not the ones with the money. We're not the ones who made the decisions that put us in these holes. So I understand it's us, and we're going to have to fix it anyway, because that's the world we have in front of us. But at the same time, a lot of these problems weren't created by our generation, and somehow we get the huge bulk of the burden of fixing it. Climate change, economic policies that, you know, were implemented when I was just a kid. You know, I wasn't even able to vote, you know. So there are things, not all finger pointing, like we all have work to do, and we're willing to do the work. but it is not as simple as us just banding together, because we are working and there are young people mobilizing. But when you don't have the big money to fight against those special interests, it's hard to get your voice heard in DC.
Well,
Hey,
as I
Gary,
said before, you have
we're on the way out of here, Gary.
Well known. Thank you so much. I appreciate
We
it.
got to let Gary. Gary, I know you want to add something there.
Well, I just think, given the time that we had, we only have like 3 minutes left. These two topics are huge. These are life-threatening topics.
Right.
And I just think we need to, I'm going to make sure that this show gets uploaded to the site so we can share it. And so, Mr. Bell, I'm going to give you, by the time, by midnight tonight, I'll have a link and we'll get this out. And we just need to be strategic and get this link out and start having these conversations and get people, just get the right information out there. That's one of the starts.
Okay. Ronald, we got about 2 minutes left. I'm going to give you a minute of that to close out. Ronald?
Well, let me just quickly, I think, Harold, I agree with Gary. These, and particularly this last topic, is so important, and it begs more time. And I do want to build on, though, what Christopher said. I mean, look, I think it is everybody's responsibility. And so everybody needs to see this as an issue of such importance that we need to come together to try to resolve it. Secondly, I'm not suggesting that you don't hold people accountable for their actions. I am saying, though, in order to hold people accountable, you have to live and you have to survive. And so fundamentally, it's important for our young Black people, young Black men, to be able to survive an encounter that we know is going to come. Doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable. One of the things you do, though, is you try to put things in place to allow people to be accountable. One of the reasons why police are being held accountable is these videos. And that's a requirement. Every police officer should be required on every traffic stop to have a video so we can see what's going on as a deterrent to this kind of behavior. But it's more complicated than that. You've got to get to, who are you hiring as police? And what are the criteria that you're using to make decisions about who is a police officer? Those have got to be, completely looked at. You have to look at why you are sending police into domestic disputes when they have no expertise to handle those disputes. Instead, you should be thinking about sending people like social workers in and not escalating these things. So it is an extremely complicated issue. But at bottom, I think, look, we all are in this together. I think we need to strategize and work together and have ongoing communication. So Harold, on this, man, I once again applaud you for hosting this kind of forum to allow us to begin to have these conversations.
Right. Well, I want to thank everybody that participated. This was a great forum, and I know Gary's going to get it out. We're going to have it up on YouTube for folks to look at. And I want to thank everybody that participated. And just remember, we're here every Sunday, so we can come back to this whenever we feel like it. So don't even worry about it. We'll stay on top of that. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Aunt Eartha. Thanks for being here, baby. Our special guest. Thank you, darling. And remember, every Black face you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy. Until next time, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone.
Be safe, everybody. This concludes our show.
Bye.
Bye.